Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. It's that time of the year. Having mourned for the ultimate tragedy throughout Muharram, many now wish to put that love and devotion into action by participating in the world's biggest, most generous, and most spiritual pilgrimage, the Arbaeen. So it's particularly painful to think that we cannot go this year. Is there a solution? Many people have reached out and asked me, what can we do? Is there ways still we can make it to the ethereal destination of angels? To answer those questions, allow me to share a few thoughts. Number one, you should definitely try to go. Sounds strange, I know. Why would anyone try to do something when they think it wouldn't materialize? Isn't it an exercise in futility and a waste of time and money? Well, not quite. Just bear with me and you'll see why this matters. Sometimes the effort is just as valuable as the intended result. Then there are times when the end result doesn't matter as much as trying to reach it. The journey thus becomes more important than the destination. You see, all of those who stayed with Imam Hussein knew that despite their best efforts and valiant sacrifice, they wouldn't be able to prevent the unspeakable, the killing of Hussein. Yet they did everything in their power nevertheless. Why would Hur throw away his life and join the Imam, knowing that his death would make no difference to the tragic eventuality? Why would Habib journey at the dead of night from Kufa to Karbala, knowing that he'll die regardless? Why would anyone switch sides, as many did, to Hussein's camp, knowing that, for lack of a better term, it was a suicide mission? The answer is that honoring the Imam and his family was a duty for which every conceivable effort is worth making. Come what may, this sacrifice is objectively a righteous one. Not because it was expected to yield results in saving the Imam, but because of what it symbolized, a selfless willingness to devote every modicum of their existence to their leader. This is why people like Dhahak al-Mashriqi were so deeply misguided. He connected his obligation to fight to the survival of the Imam. So when he realized there was no chance of the Imam making it alive against the onslaught of 30,000 swords and spears, his flawed logic and perhaps his cowardice told him to flee. And flee he did, from the promise of eternal bliss back to a mundane and miserable life of irredeemable shame and remorse. So why should we try to make the Arbaeen pilgrimage despite there being little chance of actually going? Because intention matters, that's why. It's one thing to say I tried but couldn't go, and it's another to say I didn't even attempt because I didn't see a point in trying. It's one thing to know you put your best effort but failed, and a completely different thing to simply default to failure. Imagine if well-intentioned people who may have had allegiance to Imam Hussein simply stayed back in Kufa with the false pretense of, but I won't be able to help. We all know that their failure to act was an enduring stain of disgrace on their name. It's one thing to say I was prevented from going by the government, and another to say I simply gave up all by myself. And it's not just about shifting blame. It's a teaching moment about the value of doing your best, sacrificing time and money and giving it your best shot no matter the end result. There's a concept in Islamic jurisprudence called al-masdud, which is a term that describes those blocked from making the pilgrimage to Hajj by tyrants and despots. It's better to try to go and be masdud than someone who simply stayed back and surrendered. To attempt is to act in defiance. It is also a means of keeping the flame alive within you, so that when you can go, you will do so with greater vigor and enthusiasm. It also sends a message across to the Iraqi government one of the most corrupt political establishments in modern times, that we will not allow them to take us back to the time when rulers would decide who should visit the shrine of Hussein and who shouldn't. Our religious leaders are more than capable of determining if the risk outweighs the benefit, and so those who visit the shrines are obedient to the jurists and their guidelines. What we don't need is crooked politicians in suits and ties to dictate our religious obligations, as if they care about the lives of the pilgrims when all they do is fill their offshore bank accounts with the wealth of the Iraqi people, leaving the country's health system in its dilapidated state. These political parties whose only expertise is large-scale robbery of Iraq's resources, you know, to buy essentials like mansions and luxury cars in London and Washington, so they shouldn't be the ones to preach to us. Listen to the statement of Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam to a man who asked him, قُلْتُ فَمَا لِمَنْ يُجْهِزُ إِلَيْهِ. What reward will the one who sets out to visit the shrine of Imam Hussein get? وَلَمْ يَخْرُجْ لِعِلَّةٍ تُصِيبُهُ, but is unable to go because of a problem, a disease, or something along those lines. قال, the Imam responded, يُعْطِيهِ اللَّهُ بِكُلِّ دِرْهَمٍ أَنْفَقَهُ مِثْلَ أُحُدٍ مِنَ الْحَسَنَاتِ. God will give him in exchange for every coin or currency, for every amount of money that he spends, in proportion to the size of the mountain of Uhud in rewards and good deeds. وَيُخْلِفُ عَلَيْهِ أَضْعَافَ مَا أَنْفَقَهُ, and Allah shall compensate him many times over the actual amount that he spent. وَيَصْرِفُ عَنْهُ مِنَ الْبَلَاءِ مِمَّا قَدْ نَزَلْ لِيُصِيبَهُ, and Allah shall avert evil that was destined to reach him from him or her because of their attempt to try to go. وَيَدْفَعُ عَنْهُ وَيُحْفَظُ فِي مَالِهِ, and Allah shall protect him and guard him in his wealth. So, while these rewards sound incredible, I'm sure there's another reason why we all want to do this so desperately. Because by petitioning embassies and trying to go, we hope to put our name down with those who used to give their hands as punishment for visiting the shrine of Hussein. If we get to go, we will do so with pride, dignity, and reap the incredible rewards. But if we don't, which is the more likely of the two scenarios, then we can face Imam Hussein on Judgment Day and say what Hamid ibn Abdullah al-Hanafi said to Imam al-Hussein after he blocked the rain of arrows with his face and his chest from reaching his master, only to then fall to the ground, looking up to the Imam and saying, "Awafaytu ya Aba Abdullah." Did we fulfill our duty? Were we loyal to you? Will you accept us despite our failure to reach you? My final point, brothers and sisters, is this. While many of us won't be able to go, there are still millions who can, from within Iraq as well as its neighbors. So let us help them make the journey and keep the flame alive. This is why the Ahlul Bayt Foundation has announced a campaign to support those who can go. And by paying for their transportation and the mandatory COVID test, which comes to about $200 each, they will perform ziyarah on your behalf and your loved ones. We have lots of narrations about those who cannot go themselves, but participate by helping others go or by feeding those that do. So while many are deprived of physically being there, through these two suggestions that I made, we can ensure that we're not deprived of Arbeen's magnificent rewards. May Allah gather us all once again under the majestic dome of Aba Abdullah al-Hussein sooner rather than later. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.